Hello, everybody. You are very welcome to Successful Perspectives. Successful Perspectives, of course, is when we deep dive into the topic of leadership with one of our members from our very selective and influential network, Boardroom by EMIR. And for this chat, I am delighted to be joined by Stephen Foster, the head of large projects for the Schindler Group, covering Southern Europe, Africa, Middle East, and Turkey. Stephen, it's great to have you on Successful Perspectives. And thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much, Frank.
Stephen, the Schindler Group, on its 150th anniversary, moving more than 2 billion people each day, a leading manufacturer and provider of related services for elevators, escalators, and moving walkways, which we know can be found in many well-known buildings around the globe. And as I've gotten to know you, and your very genuinely impressive journey over the last number of years, is I've been looking forward to our conversation to learn more about your leadership style and the principles that you follow. So let's start by diving into the questions. And the first question I really want to focus on with you is, for you, what are the main tenets of your leadership philosophy?
I guess my leadership style, like other mature leaders, what I mean by mature is those that have been at it for a while, has changed over the years. Mine has been honed working across 8 different countries with widely different cultures over a span of 30 years. And you cannot help but evolve your leadership philosophy as you experience life. So if you'd asked me this question as a 28-year-old, I would have said courage, strength, assertiveness, leading from the front, all important tenets of leadership. And I hope I still have some of those today. But working in the Middle East today, I would say it's about strong vision, it's about clear communication, it's about influencing, perhaps even education. You know, we're very lucky here in the Middle East to be surrounded by visionary leaders. His Highness here in Dubai is a classic example, with his vision for the best place to live by 2040. Mohammed bin Salman in the kingdom, of course, with his vision to diversify and open up, and even President Sisi up in Egypt. So if you want to survive, prosper here, then you need to adapt your leadership style to reflect the environment that you're operating in, which means you too have to have a well-communicated vision. You too need to take some risk to get some reward, and you have to be able to positively influence relationships to multiply outcomes. So I guess my leadership tenets, many and varied, have probably changed over my 30 years working.
It's an excellent answer. And I can see from how you even structure that answer, it's something you reflect on quite often. So how often do you reflect in this philosophy and bearing in mind? Can I also ask, if you don't mind, as in reflection, and then what I might ask you after is, how do you measure then its success over time?
I think the measurement bit is quite challenging, but it's true. The older you get, and hopefully the wiser you get, you have more time to invest in these type of things. I mean, there are 2 areas or 2 tenets that I didn't mention earlier that I think are really important. One of them is self-awareness, and the other one is thankfulness. And I've been focusing quite a lot on these 2, I guess, in the last couple of years. Self-awareness is an area of development for me, and I've been working on it with my team. Simply put, it's the ability to understand, recognize your own behaviors in certain circumstances, situations, and with certain people, and your emotional responses to it. And if you're able to recognize those strengths and areas for development, then I think it just makes you a better leader. You know, our colleagues and staff are observing and evaluating us all the time. And so I think we have a responsibility to act accordingly. And I've learned as I've got older, if you show a little bit more vulnerability, it tends to build bonds of trust. And of course, trust can be leveraged in any organization. As far as thankfulness goes, it costs nothing. and creates huge value. I mean, good leaders express thanks and gratitude to those who deserve it. It's like a multiplier. And I think young talents often get engaged and are more inspired. And I think one of the measurements, if you referred to that as a question, I think if young people stay within a business and work with leadership and are able to create a shared vision, then I think this will be a reasonable measurement that those leadership tenets are properly instilled.
That's an excellent answer. It's the correlation between the vision and trust and actually empowering others to work with you and living in those tenets of philosophy over time. You've given me a lot of food for thought to process there, Stephen. So thank you genuinely for that. And that kind of moves me into my next question in terms of, like, would you consider yourself a natural leader?
I guess from a very young age, I was thrust into leadership roles, whether it was captains of sport. I mean, I was captain of a cricket team at the age of 11, and that carried through to captaining England schools and universities and even captaining Hong Kong. So, from a very, very early age, I was also head of an English public school where I had responsibility for 600 students working through a team of prefects, a sort of management structure that we would see today in many organizations. So whomever took these decisions must have seen some traits of leadership, which quite frankly, I was not aware of as I was growing up. But I guess I do remember one incident at school that probably did bring that focus or awareness. It's when I was asked by the headmaster of the school to manage the front line following a very unfortunate death at school. And I had to sort of get the courage to talk this through with students and the ability to listen with empathy and show some compassion. And this was at the age of 17. And I remember asking myself at the time, why me? And I guess it was that point, sort of trigger point, when I realized that maybe I did have some natural leadership. And when we're young, we're fearless, and our decision making can often be seen in retrospect as maybe lacking full consideration, maybe reckless. But that's why I think in business it's so important that any company should have a balance between youth and experience, and making sure that ideas and thoughts of the younger generation are heard and encouraged, and not suppressed by older, more experienced leaders who perhaps over time, battered by that experience, can miss certain opportunities. I mean, I know I make use of a lot of cross-functional, diverse teams when addressing challenges, and I think it just increases the chances of success.
I agree. What I might do now is maybe just shift lanes a small bit in terms of some of the questions. And do you feel nowadays that the modern leader has like a great responsibility to not only create a positive culture for their team, but also to have that positive impact on society?
I think for me, having a culture that supports the values of a company, that sort of sets out the expectations and accepted behaviors of individuals representing that company is a key foundation for sustainability, both in good times and in bad. So I would agree that a leader must ensure that he or she invests time and personal energy towards it. I actually sit Schindler on a culture steering committee, and I mentor a couple of what we call culture ambassadors, whose role is to create bridges between different layers and to make sure that everybody gets a voice, create a proper speak-up culture. So I think it's essential. But I think leaders by nature are influential, motivational, disciplined. These qualities are needed in any society. So finding time to invest these skills to support local communities in which the business operates, I think it's not only good for personal growth, but I think it's good for everybody. I've spent quite a lot of my time working through chambers of commerce, trying to support smaller businesses and get them connected and provide channels for their growth. I've also had a personal interest in mental health. And I spent a lot of time whilst I was living in Singapore working with an organization, Mindset, where we were focusing on getting those people with mental health issues back into the workplace. So I think it's very important that leaders do make an impact, social impact. You know, companies are valued in various ways. And I think, you know, you can look at gross profit less costs multiplied by a factor is one value. But I think shareholders want more than that these days, and having a good compliance and governance culture, a good people strategy enhances shareholder value. And I think being good corporate citizens adds exactly the same value to companies.
Okay, Stephen, one more question before we shift on to our rapid fire round. For all of our aspiring leaders that are watching your interview right now, what is the best career advice you ever received?
I think the best advice I received, which helped my career, was from my late grandfather, who I really admired. He was post-war. He didn't have much in his pocket, and he worked very hard. He became a name at Lloyd's and ended up running one of the largest insurance brokerages in the UK. And he told me, never underestimate the power of positive thinking. And I think career-wise for me, that's always meant taking every opportunity that's been presented. And I've taken these words with me always, accepting challenging roles when few people would put up their hands, seeing the opportunities that came out of two financial crises, the opportunities to make change, to strengthen relationships, to seek new ones. And I think seeing the glass half full, whilst it can often be seen as being maybe overly optimistic and sometimes not grounded in reality, is far better for me and for my mental health than seeing worse or downside in everything and everyone. So his words have kept me going throughout my career, and I hope will do too for my children.
Excellent. Stephen, thank you. They're all excellent answers as well. Thank you, genuinely, for being on Successful Perspectives. It's been a pleasure having you. And there were excellent insights, very, very interesting insights. So thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. And thank you for welcoming me to the Insight program. Thank you.